If you are listening to this and you are 70, 80, or beyond, first let me say something simple and true. You have lived a life full of lessons, love, loss, joy, and sometimes pain. And what you carry inside matters. Forgiveness might sound like a big abstract word, something preached from a pulpit or written in a self-help book. But in reality, it is an everyday practice with the power to change your mornings, your sleep, your relationships, and even the way your body feels. Forgiveness after 70 is not about letting people off the hook for harm they caused. It is about freeing yourself from the heavy luggage of anger, disappointment, and regret, so you can move with greater lightness and meaning through the years you have left. This is a compassionate, practical guide for elders who want to understand what forgiveness really means, how it helps, and how to do it in ways that respect your history, your dignity, and your needs. Forgiveness begins with clarity. Many people confuse forgiveness with forgetting, condoning, or reconciliation. That is not what we mean here. Forgiveness is a deliberate choice to release the grip of resentment on your own heart. It is a way of saying, I will no longer let this injury define my days, while still honoring the reality of what happened. You can forgive without reconciling. You can forgive a person who is far away, estranged, or even deceased. You can forgive without minimizing your pain. And you can hold boundaries while still letting go of bitterness. This distinction between forgiving and forgetting, between releasing and excusing, matters because it takes power away from the wrong idea that forgiveness is weakness. It is instead profound inner strength. Why does forgiveness matter, especially after 70? Because as we age, time becomes more precious, and the emotional weight of unresolved hurts can be more than we need to carry. Recent years of research and the lived experiences of countless older adults show that forgiveness has real benefits. Better sleep, reduced anxiety, lower blood pressure, less chronic stress, and improved relationships. On a deeper level, forgiveness restores a sense of self that is not wrapped up in being wounded. It allows you to reclaim your story as more than the moment you were hurt. Forgiveness creates space for joy, for curiosity, for small pleasures you may have been neglecting while you replayed past slights. It is not magic, but it is medicine for the heart. If you are ready to begin, know that this work takes courage. The practices that follow are not quick fixes. They are gentle, practical steps you can do at your own pace. They honor your feelings while guiding you toward release. We will move from recognition to action. How to identify what you feel, how to hold that feeling, how to speak about it if you choose, and how to perform small rituals that mark the letting go. You will find stories of people who did this work late in life and found unexpected peace. You will find exercises, letters, meditations, boundary-setting scripts, and small ritual ideas that you can use tonight. And you will find invitations to seek support when pain is deep and professional help would be wise. Begin by naming. The first step in forgiveness is to become honest about what you feel. Name the hurt. Say it out loud or write it down. I felt betrayed when, or I was ashamed when. Many elders grew up in families where emotions were not spoken about, where silence protected dignity. Naming is not airing grievance for its own sake. It is clarifying what you are carrying so you can decide how to respond. If you cannot speak the words, write them as a private letter you keep to yourself or burn later. The act of naming gives pain a shape and makes it possible to work with it. Try this tonight. Sit quietly and write a short sentence that begins, I felt hurt when. If tears come, let them. Tears are honest currency and often begin the road to release. Next, tell the story to yourself with compassion. This is not a performance. It is an act of bearing witness to your life. In telling your story, resist the urge to replay it as a loop where only you suffer. Try to tell it as if you were a kind, wise friend listening to a younger person. What would you say to that person? How would you validate their sorrow and then encourage them to choose peace? This inner voice of compassion changes the tone of your grief. It transforms self-recrimination into self-care. Remember that compassion for yourself does not excuse anyone's wrongdoing. It simply acknowledges that your pain is real and that you deserve gentleness. Decide what kind of forgiveness is possible and wise. There are several pathways. Explicit forgiveness through conversation. Indirect forgiveness through a letter you don't send. Symbolic forgiveness through a ritual. Or internal forgiveness where you let go in private. The most important choice is to pick a pathway that honors your safety and dignity. If a face-to-face conversation would put you at risk or reopen trauma, a letter you write and then not send may be the best route. If the person who hurt you has died, a conversation is obviously impossible, but you can still speak aloud into a quiet room, record your voice, or write a goodbye letter and burn it. If reconciliation is desired and safe, prepare for a conversation that includes clear boundaries and realistic expectations. In all cases, forgiveness is your gift to yourself, not an obligation to restore a relationship. Practicing empathy can make forgiveness possible in surprising ways. Empathy here does not mean excusing harm. Rather, it invites you to consider the human complexity behind someone else's actions. Often people hurt others from fear, ignorance, or their own unresolved wounds. For elders, empathy can be a powerful lens because it expands your view of human frailty and reminds you that everyone carries burdens. You might ask, what might have been happening in their life that led them to behave this way? This question, asked gently and without judgment, does not erase the wrongdoing but can soften the sharp edges of anger. An elder named Margaret forgave a son who had been neglectful after realizing his struggles with addiction and unemployment. She still protected herself, but understanding his context released her from constant rage and enabled calmer interactions. Yet empathy has limits. It must be balanced with self-protection. Forgiving someone who is still abusive or manipulative without setting clear boundaries is not forgiveness. It is harm. Set boundaries firmly. Say what is acceptable and what is not, and be prepared to enforce consequences. For example, you might say, I want to speak with you, but I will not tolerate screaming or insults. If you raise your voice, I will end the conversation. Or, if an adult child repeatedly takes advantage, you might say, I love you, but I cannot provide financial support at this time. I can help you find resources, and I will be available to talk on Sunday evenings. Boundaries are not punishment. They are the frame that protects your well-being and makes forgiveness sustainable. One powerful practice is writing a forgiveness letter. This is a well-tested method that works for many elders. Begin by addressing the person directly and state what happened briefly and clearly. Then describe how it made you feel, without embellishment or accusation, using I statements. For example, when you did X, I felt hurt and lonely. Then express what you want now. Forgiveness, distance, or a reconsideration of behavior. If you are choosing internal forgiveness, you might write, I forgive you for X, and I release the hold this has had on my life. Some people find it healing to seal the letter and keep it in a box. Others choose to burn it as a symbolic release. The ritual, writing, sealing, burning has psychological power because it marks a decision and creates a physical boundary between past and present. Another practice is the empty chair exercise, often used in therapy and surprisingly effective at home. Place an empty chair in front of you and imagine the person who wronged you sitting there. Speak to them. Tell them how you feel. Ask the questions you never got to ask. Say the words you needed to say when it mattered. Then speak forgiveness out loud when you feel ready. You might say, I forgive you. I release you to your life, and I release myself to mine. You can repeat this practice as needed. Speaking aloud engages different parts of the brain than thinking silently and often shifts your emotional landscape. Forgiving yourself matters too, and sometimes it is the most essential work of all. Many elders carry regret, choices they wish they had made differently, words not spoken, paths not taken. Self-forgiveness begins with acknowledging mistakes and offering yourself the same compassion you would offer a friend. Make a list of things you regret, and for each write a short note of understanding. I did the best I could with what I knew then. Then, imagine advising your younger self with kindness and the wisdom you now have. Self-forgiveness is not evading responsibility. It is accepting that you are human and that your worth is not erased by errors. When you forgive yourself, you free energy for present joys and forgiving to others. Rituals can be very meaningful, especially for elders who appreciate symbolic acts. A ritual might be as simple as lighting a candle and speaking the names of the people you forgive, or as elaborate as planting a tree in memory of a healed hurt. Some elders write a forgiveness list and place it under a stone, then take a walk and scatter seeds. Rituals anchor the decision to forgive and translate an inward shift into an outward gesture. Choose a ritual that fits your beliefs and aesthetics. What feels like a real turning point to you? Physical practices support emotional release. Breathwork, Gentle movement, walking in nature, or simple stretches often help move stuck feelings. Breath-based exercises like inhaling for 4 counts and exhaling for 6 calm the nervous system and clear emotional fog. A short daily practice, 5 minutes of breathing while repeating a forgiveness affirmation, can compound over weeks. Movement and nature are potent allies. A slow walk under trees while repeating a phrase like, "I let go," can be surprisingly transformative. Sometimes forgiveness requires help. A counselor, therapist, or support group that understands elder issues can guide you through deep or traumatic injuries. Therapy is not a sign of weakness. It is a practical resource. For many elders, group therapy or a faith-based support group provides community and structure for processing emotions. If you find yourself stuck in anger that daily life does not ease, or if sleep, appetite, or energy suffers, consider reaching out for professional help. Many clinicians specialize in grief and forgiveness work and can provide safe techniques tailored to older adults. Reconciliation is a separate, earned path. If you and the person who harmed you both want to rebuild the relationship, approach reconciliation cautiously and with a plan. Reconciliation requires accountability from the person who caused harm and must be paced in ways that feel safe to you. Start with mediated conversations if possible. Bring a counselor or trusted family member who can ensure both sides are heard and boundaries are respected. Celebrate small steps toward trust and do not rush the process. Remember, reconciliation is a bonus, not a condition of forgiveness. Forgiveness also intersects with justice. In cases of criminal harm, abuse, or systemic injustice, forgiveness does not replace legal accountability. You can seek legal recourse while simultaneously working to free yourself from hatred. These paths, justice and internal peace, can proceed together. Seeking justice can validate your pain and protect others, while forgiveness can limit the emotional toll of the legal struggle. Both are valid and sometimes necessary responses. Practical tips for everyday practice. Create a forgiveness journal and make short entries each day. They need not be long, 1 or 2 sentences about what you noticed in your feelings and what small step you took. Over time, you will see progress. Keep a list of committed boundaries and review them weekly. Make a short forgiveness toolkit on your bedside table. A notebook, a pen, a small stone you hold while meditating, a printed breathing pattern, and a contact for a supportive friend to call. When old grievances resurface, reach for that toolkit. Language matters. Use sentences that clarify agency and intention. For example, I choose to forgive because I want peace, or I forgive because I no longer want anger to decide my mornings. These active statements shift your mind from being a passive victim to being an active agent of your own life. Repeating your chosen sentence daily can change neural pathways and make forgiveness feel increasingly natural. If you are a family member helping an elder with this work, listen first. Offer kindness, not advice. Ask questions like, "Would you like to tell me about it?" Or "How can I support you in this?" Offer to help with practical tasks, setting up a session with a counselor, writing a letter, or planning a small ritual. For many elders, the simple presence of a loved one during forgiveness work, sitting together while they write, or listening without judgment, creates enormous healing. Be patient. This work often takes longer than we expect. Forgiveness can rekindle relationships in gentle ways. When someone sees you forgive, they may soften too. An elder who forgave a distant sibling later reported that the sibling began to call more often, and that old jokes returned. Not every story ends in reunion, but many do. Forgiveness leaves the door open while protecting your heart. Pay attention to your body as you practice. Forgiveness can release trapped emotions that may manifest physically, sleepless nights, fatigue, or sudden tears. Understand these as part of the process and care for your body with rest, good food, and gentle movement. If physical symptoms are severe or persistent, check with your healthcare provider to rule out medical conditions. Make forgiveness a daily practice, not a one-time act. Some days you will wake with clarity and release. Other days old resentments surface. That's normal. When an old pain resurfaces, respond with curiosity. Ask what triggered it. Breathe and return to your practices. Repetition, not perfection, creates change. Consider the gift of legacy. When you choose forgiveness, you model something invaluable for your children and grandchildren. You show that strength is not about holding on to grievances, but about choosing a path that serves life. The stories we leave, about how we treated others and how we healed ourselves, become part of the moral DNA of our families. Forgiveness is a living legacy. Stories may help frame the work. I remember an older woman named Ruth who carried bitterness about being cut out of a will decades earlier. She had replayed that injustice every holiday season. One winter, she decided to write a letter she would not send, detailing the hurt, the history, and then the way she wanted to live. She sealed, burned, and planted the ashes beside a rosebush. The next summer, the bush produced the most fragrant bloom she'd ever known. Whether coincidence or symbol, the act marked a turning point. Ruth reported sleeping longer and finding more joy in her garden. Another elder, Thomas, could not bring himself to forgive a son who had abandoned the family. He took small steps. He stopped revisiting the old story each week. He built friendships with neighbors, and he started tutoring neighborhood children in woodworking. Over time, he felt lighter. He forgave, not because the son apologized, but because Thomas would not let the son's absence be the roof of his days forever. If you're wondering how to start tonight, try this simple guided practice. Sit comfortably with a cup of tea. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Place a hand on your heart. Breathe in slowly for 4 counts, out for 6. Bring to mind a small specific hurt, not the entire tapestry of resentment, and say silently or aloud, I feel this pain. It has a name, Nahama. Fill in the blank. Stay with the feeling for a breath or two. Then invite yourself to say, I choose to release the hold this has on me. I choose to live with more peace. Repeat the breathing and the phrase 3 times. When you're ready, open your eyes and write one short sentence in a notebook about what shifted. This tiny ritual takes 5 minutes and can begin to loosen old burdens. Be gentle with timelines. Forgiveness is not a race. For some elders, it is quick and freeing. For others, it is slow and layered. Honor where you are. Celebrate small steps. A night of better sleep. A day when you didn't replay an argument. A phone call that felt less charged. Small victories are authentic signs of progress. Finally, remember that forgiveness is an act of love toward yourself. You do it because your time is precious and because you deserve peace. The world will always contain cruelty and disappointment, but you have the agency to choose how much of it you carry into each day. By making forgiveness a practice, you open space for curiosity, connection, beauty, and the quiet pleasures that make life worth living. If you are moved by this practice, consider sharing it with someone you trust, or keep it private, whichever feels right. If you ever find the pain too heavy to carry alone, reach out to a professional who understands elder care and grief. Asking for help is courageous and wise. In the end, forgiveness after 70 is not about erasing the past. It is about reclaiming your future. It is about deciding that the rest of your days can be lighter, more present, and more generous. You have weathered storms. Now allow yourself fair winds. Start small, stay gentle, and keep choosing the peace that you so richly deserve.